Happy Thursday and welcome to your weekly briefing on SWBN News Watch. I am Chima Chike. Thanks for joining us tonight. We have good news coming from the Premier Christian News. The report has it that a Christian aid worker who was held hostage in Niger for 6 years has been released. In 2016, American aid worker Jeff Woodkey, now 62, was kidnapped from his home in the northern city of Abalak, Niger. Woodkey had just stepped down as the head of Jamed, a charity supported by the aid agency Tier Fund, when he was kidnapped. Gunmen also shot and killed his guards. It's believed his captors had demanded a multi-million-dollar ransom for his release in 2021, but U.S. officials say no ransom was paid to secure his freedom. However, the U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken recently announced an aid package for the region worth around $150 million, and some believe this may have helped encourage the government of Niger to secure his release. A French journalist, Olivier Dubois, who was abducted in Mali in 2021, was released at the same time. At a press conference, Blinken welcomed their release. In his words, "I have no higher priority or focus than bringing home any unjustly detained American wherever that is in the world. We won't rest until they are all home and, like Jeffrey, reunited with their families." Nigerian Interior Minister Hamadu Sule said that Mr. Woodkey and Mr. Dubois had been freed from the hands of Jamaat Nasir al-Islam wal Muslimin, JNIM, a West Africa-based affiliate of Al-Qaeda, after several months of work by the country's authorities to secure their release. A controversial bill introduced by two ultra-Orthodox members of Israel's Knesset has drawn widespread concern. The bill makes it a criminal offense to persuade anyone to convert to another religion, with special mention of the Christian religion. Responding to a chorus of concern from evangelical Christians in the United States and from believers in Israel, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu assured Christians in Israel that he would not advance any law against the Christian community. He made this known in a tweet written in Hebrew and in English language. The Prime Minister's announcement allayed fears that the bill proposed by two members of the coalition government would become law, CBN News reported. The proposed law states that, and I quote, "Anyone who persuades a person directly, digitally by direct mail or online to convert his religion, his sentence is 1 year imprisonment, and if the person was a minor, his sentence is 2 years imprisonment." Knesset members Moshe Gafni and Yaakov Asher from the United Torah Judaism Party, UTJ, submitted the legislation in January. In reaction to Netanyahu's tweets, they stated, quote, "The mission bill was introduced as in every beginning of the Knesset and not promoted at this stage, so dealing with it now is not relevant." Meanwhile, Israeli legal expert David Benjamin told CBN News that while the proposed law would apply to all religions, it specifically singled out Christians. The proposed law partly reads that, quote, "In recent times, the attempts of missionary bodies, mainly Christian ones, to persuade people to convert have increased. Sometimes these attempts do not involve the promise of money or material favors and therefore are not prohibited according to the existing law, but there are many negative consequences, including mental damage, require the intervention of the legislator." Benjamin adds this effort would likely violate Israel's Declaration of Independence. Meanwhile, former U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, Sam Brownback, warned it could harm Israel since Israel also signed the UN Charter of Human Rights that permitted the freedom of religion. According to CBN News, some feel that given the composition of the current coalition government, it might be possible for the bill to become law, but Netanyahu, who's been a close friend of evangelical Christians for decades, would not support such a measure. On the latest stance from the woke church, a professor at a Bible college in the UK has been fired for tweeting that homosexuality is, quote, invading the church. Dr. Aaron Edwards was ousted from his position at Cliff College in Derbyshire, England, after he posted the tweet on February 19, 2023. College administrators fired Edwards for bringing the college into disrepute with his tweet addressing homosexuality. In addition to his dismissal, the college revealed that during a disciplinary hearing on March 8 this year, administrators considered reporting Edwards to prevent an initiative monitoring allegations of terrorism in the UK, CBN News reported. The theology professor said college officials' reaction to his tweet illustrated his point. In a statement to Fox News, Edwards said, and I quote, "The reaction to my tweet and the unjust treatment I have experienced by Cliff College and the Methodist Church in Britain completely illustrates the problem my tweet addressed." He added that, quote, "The tweet was not defamatory. It was not an attack on any colleague or individual. It was not abusive, and it was not an extremist religious view. It was addressed to evangelicals as a point of doctrine, and it has been misunderstood by many who wish to cause personal and institutional trouble for those who express that view," end of quote. Edwards said mainstream biblical views on sexuality are being silenced and stamped out of the Methodist Church. With the aid of the Christian Legal Center, Edwards is weighing the legal options against Cliff College for potential discrimination under the Equality Act of 2010. He's claiming that the disciplinary procedure lacked requisite fairness and that the investigation was prejudiced and filled with an astonishing imbalance, exaggeration, and misrepresentation. What do you think about this story? Can a person identify as gay and be called a Christian? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Now, in the United States, proposed measure in 8 states are targeting pornography by requiring phone and tablet manufacturers to include filters that would automatically censor any nude or sexually explicit content. NBC News reports that the anti-pornography bills would force phone and tablet manufacturers like Apple and Samsung to automatically enable filters that censor nude and sexually explicit content. The only way to disable the filters, according to the bills introduced this year, would be through passcodes. Providing such a passcode to a child would be forbidden except when done by a parent. Specifically, the bills say the phone filters must prevent children from downloading sexually explicit content via mobile data networks, applications owned and controlled by the manufacturer, and wired or wireless internet networks. Representatives from the National Center on Sexual Exploitation and Protect Young Eyes reportedly contributed to the legislation. Reacting to this development, Chris McKenna, founder and CEO of Protect Young Eyes, said the legislation could also end up applying to other device-level filters created in recent years that some might consider more invasive. Samia Jain, Vice President of Policy at the Center for Democracy and Technology, argued the bills bring up concerns about user privacy. Some speculate that manufacturers could be forced to collect age data from customers via government ID and other forms of identification. He is of the opinion that in the case of children using the devices, filters should be deliberately tuned and applied by parents themselves. What are your thoughts on these efforts? Would this help protect young minds from the snares of pornography? Leave your thoughts below. For our final story on this edition of the SWBN News Watch, we will be shedding the spotlight on the Russian-Ukraine war. The Premier Christian News reports that a plan by the World Council of Churches to bring Christian leaders from Russia and Ukraine together to discuss steps to end the war has received support from Pope Francis. The General Secretary of the World Council of Churches met with the 86-year-old Pope in the Vatican, and plans for the roundtable discussions were at the top of the agenda. Dr. Jerry Pillay says Francis responded very positively to the initiative and certainly felt that we were actually on the right track in seeking to do that. The South African academic, who now leads the international organization, told Premier Christian News that the Pope offered a great sense of affirmation and confirmation. Pillay added that, quote, the emphasis in terms of the conversation is the fact that we really need to focus on Jesus Christ and how belief in Christ steers us into working towards peace. Almost all UK churches belong to the World Council. Since the start of the war, the organization has resisted calls from some members for it to expel the Russian Orthodox Church and its leader, Patriarch Kirill. Pillay defends that decision but stresses that the World Council has condemned the war and rejects any language that suggests a Bible-based justification for the Russian invasion. He sees the meeting with the Pope as a positive step towards bringing Christian leaders from Ukraine and Russia into the same room for the peace summit. He's of the position that prayer must give birth to action, and the roundtable is one way the WCC can give action to possibilities of reconciliation and peace. We've come to the end of this edition of the SWBN News Watch. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Till we meet next Thursday, 9 p.m. I remain Shimulachike. See you next time.